Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We got some more folks trickling in here, and I'm going to give it a minute or two before we start. But I would love if folks could go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. And since we are on a hospitality, culinary, and tourism advisory meeting, I would love if you all could share what's your favorite meal to have in the region. It could be out. I'm hoping you'll say out in a restaurant, although if some of you are home chefs, would love to hear that as well. But would love to hear your favorite meal in the region. Mine is the chicken cordon bleu at the Tin Lantern up in Placer County area in Meadow Vista. That is a beautiful little hole in the wall restaurant. And as we have more folks coming on in, if you could introduce yourself in the chat and share your favorite meal in the region. Awesome. I see folks starting off here. Yeah, thank you. Got more folks joining. Would love if you could introduce yourself in the chat and share your favorite meal in the region at a restaurant or somewhere local. I love those kind of hole in the wall places, like the ones that are kind of secretive or you share with your family and friends. Those are my favorite kind of little small town restaurants like that. Awesome. See folks popping off in the chat here. Ooh, Hawks on Alhambra burger and a signature bourbon cocktail. It sounds delicious. Ooh, another burger at Woody's Brew House. Sounds great. You got me hungry. It's only 2 p.m. and I'm ready for dinner. Ooh, avocado toast at Faria Bakery. That's right down the street from Valley Vision, right by you too, Brittany. I'm a sucker for avocado toast. I'm a millennial. What can I say? I love avocado on my toast. Amazing. Good steak at Morton's. Yes. I'm a tri-tip gal is my favorite cut, but vegan eggs Benedict. Yum. I love Pushkins. Thanks, Renee. Awesome. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and get started here, but would love if folks can continue to introduce themselves in the chat and share their favorite meal. Not at all for my selfish purposes and planning where I'm going to eat in the future, but also a great way to connect with each other. And we're going to go ahead and get rolling here. So welcome all to our regional industry advisory meeting for the hospitality, culinary, and tourism sector. We really appreciate your attendance and participation here today, as these advisories really inform the community college curriculum and help to align our workforce pipeline. Before we kind of kick off, I want to introduce myself here. My name is Caitlin Blockus, and I am a project manager at Valley Vision. I will be facilitating our advisory today with some help from my colleagues. And before we kick off, I also want to quickly pass it over to Michael Frim, who is the professor of culinary arts management at Cosumnes River College, who has been a huge help in our planning process here. I want to thank Michael and kick it over to him for a brief introduction.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Regional Advisory Committee. Before I get started, I'll tell you I live in Oak Park off Stockton Boulevard, so my favorite meal is a big bowl of pork noodle soup at my favorite pho restaurant. So I'm there quite often. So yeah, thank you all for joining us on the call today. Thank you to Valley Vision for spearheading this. I've had the pleasure of partnering and collaborating with Valley Vision on several projects all related to workforce development throughout the years, and the impact on my program has been significant, and these meetings are really important. And you being here shows that you understand the importance of this collaborative effort that we have to undertake to ensure quality and relevant workforce training. So also want to say thank you to our panelists and our speakers who have given up their precious, valuable time to provide this insight to us. Your time is much appreciated. I see a lot of familiar faces on the call and some unfamiliar faces. So again, welcome to everybody. Thank you so much for giving us your time and really prioritizing workforce development and training in the region, as we all kind of work towards that same goal of really relevant, quality hospitality, culinary focused workforce training in the Sacramento region. So again, thank you all for coming, and it's a pleasure to see everyone.
Thank you so much, Michael. And before we kick things off here, I do want to say a huge thank you to our supporters and our partners. These advisories are sponsored by the Los Rios Community College District with strong workforce funds in conjunction with the Centers of Excellence, Yuba, Sierra, and Lake Tahoe community colleges, as well as the Sacramento County Office of Education. And these events are also supported by the Capital Region's 4 workforce boards, which include SETA, Sacramento Works, Golden Sierra Job Training Agency, YOLO Works, and the North Central Counties Consortium. So thank you so much for all of your support in helping us make these events happen. Really appreciate it. And I want to kick us off with a little bit of housekeeping here. In these events, we prefer that folks keep their videos on. And COVID here and being separated from everyone, it's great to see all of your gorgeous faces. So we prefer that. We also prefer folks stay on mute unless called upon to ask a question. We will have tons of time for some Q&A and chance to chat with each other, but until then, would be great if we could stay on mute. And we also encourage folks to submit all of your questions and any comments using the chat function. We find that these events have a really robust chat. I love to see folks connecting with each other, sometimes seeing old friends or faces that we used to work together in the office and things like that, and making connections. So encourage you all to put anything in the chat there. Our team is also monitoring that. And so if over during our keynote speaker or our panel section, you have any questions come up, we will be keeping an eye on that and raising those forward. And this meeting will also be recorded, and the recording will be provided in our post-advisory materials. So just FYI there. And as we move forward, really quickly want to go over our agenda here. We have met myself and Michael for a little bit of welcome and introduction. I'm going to kick it off shortly to our keynote speaker, and then we will hear some labor market and job posting insights. We'll be joined by our Industry Insights panel of employers, and then we will close off this event with a little bit of conclusion and next steps here. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Mark Zapposnick, the President and CEO of Rancho Cordova Travel and Tourism, to share a little bit of his perspective from the industry. And I'll pass it over to you, Mark.
All right. Thanks so much, Caitlin. And again, yeah, thanks to Valley Vision. Thanks to California Community Colleges, for this opportunity. I really feel honored to be here and to be able to talk about an industry that is so important to me, that I've been part of for well over 2 decades, and has given me so much. And I see a bright future for the industry, but definitely, and we're an industry that is, taken a pretty big hit during COVID. So this is a really important conversation, I believe, that we'll have here today. Quickly though, favorite meal. So I love the chicken vindaloo at Mayfield. It's a little tiny hole in the wall restaurant, Indian restaurant in Roseville. Yeah, for me, gosh, that's one of the favorite places that I do like to go. So yeah, just to get started here, the industry, as we all know, was hit harder, than any other industry when COVID came along. And we saw, job losses, in some segments of the industry approaching 80%. And this was, more on the accommodation side. Obviously, for restaurants, we saw bars that weren't able to operate. Now, I never thought that we would ever see this moment. In the pre-COVID world, we planned for Black Swan events. I never imagined what happened would happen. And so this has been a transformational period for everyone as a society, and how we interact and what we do, because these experiences that we have, whether it be travel or whether it be dining out or going out to a brewery for a beer, all of those experiences were kind of put on hold during the pandemic. That created a huge disruption for the workforce. Obviously, there were some government programs that worked to help and were helpful in some ways to maintain, an employment, at least a paycheck for some of these, for many of these people. But what it did to the industry was pretty devastating. And I think that confidence in the industry and their role in the industry changed too, because they felt like, oh my gosh, I didn't think that, boom, I would lose my job so quickly under these types of circumstances. So it certainly had an impact on everybody. But I think that as you look through, the numbers, oh, did somebody have a comment there? I'm sorry, heard somebody.
No, I think it was just a mistake. Mark, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, sure. So, as we look, the leisure and hospitality industry right now is still about 9% below the This is according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and 9% below where we were pre-COVID. So there definitely is some room there. Even if there are not enough people to cover all of the positions, right now we're seeing this in all sectors. And so that's going to be really interesting to talk through some of the figures the data and the figures that will be brought up a little bit later on today is specifically what's happening in our region. But if you look at nationally, we're still at a pretty big delta in terms of getting all employees back and all workers back within this segment. So I think that's going to be, a good conversation. But I think that there are some real opportunities that exist in our industry, and I think that will be a good thing for us to be discussing as well. I think from a community college perspective, there are certain skills that, thank you for flipping this up. So this just talks about how impactful our industry is, both in terms of number of jobs that it's supplied on a national level, and kind of what's happened with the industry, again, showing here at that 9% below pre-pandemic levels. But one thing that has happened on the positive side is earnings have gone up for leisure and hospitality workers. It's about 18% above pre-pandemic levels. And so I think that there are optimistic things happening in terms of the actual salaries that people are making. But in addition to that, I think the real opportunity is nothing connects us better than leisure and hospitality and the experiences we have there. I think this is so critical. I think it's so critical, if this younger generation coming up, with Gen Y, we need these connections. They're finding it through digital means right now. However, in the long run, it's going to be more beneficial for everyone because we are social creatures to have these interactions come back. I remember, that first dinner after coming back from when COVID, when restaurants were closed. That was, an experience, and these are experiences, and these are how we really live and enhance the quality of our lives is having these great experiences. I just was traveling recently, and actually a housekeeper in a hotel was a great ambassador for her region, and happened to just stop me in the hall and asked how my trip was going. She was very insightful about things that were happening in the community, and was very helpful in terms of what do you need while you're here and all of that. Those interactions, we didn't have those for a long time. Those things are coming back, and so I'm very optimistic about what this holds going forward. And again, I appreciate too. I know that we call it culinary arts, and it is an art. And I think that the arts side of what happens in the industry and the real innovative types of opportunities exist here are really going to be important. And the other thing I'd say for this industry too, I've worked in hotels, and I've worked in now for a destination management organization. And, I'm somebody who started kind of at a lower level role and has been able to work my way up. And I have what would be considered by all accounts a very good job now, and have great opportunities to work both locally, nationally, and with our state on issues that revolve around hospitality. And the industry has given me a great deal. I'm just so appreciative for what it's given me, and to know that there are so many great opportunities for people who pursue this opportunity within their own aspirations coming out of college. And there are, again, there's nothing more important than that human connection. And these jobs in many cases provide that outstanding human connection. So I'll cut it there. I'll take some questions. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy. I didn't want to get into too many stats right now because I could talk for hours about kind of the complexities of what has happened to our industry over time. But I think it's, noting this slide here, the return of the experienced creators is really going to come back in a strong way. And it's incumbent upon all of us to make sure that as we compete with these other new types of jobs that are out there, the logistics jobs and so forth, that we share what our industry has to offer, both for the employee and the way that you're creating a great service for other people as well. So with that, I'm open to questions and look forward to hearing from everybody else here today. And again, thank you all for being here. Really appreciate this.
Thank you so much, Mark. Great to hear your perspective. I'm looking through the chat here. Glenn, I saw you have a question in the chat, wondering what can be done to get people to reconsider restaurants and other forms of hospitality. Glenn, did you want to expand on that, asking Mark, or did I cover it there?
I'd like to build a little bit on that, on what I said there. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
So the thing that I was bringing up in the chat was that I know some people who really liked restaurants in particular. I've been involved with serving of food, especially with wine pairings. And, you know, when the whole restaurant industry shut down, they had some thinking about what to do because restaurants would open and close again, open and close. So some of my friends thought about what they liked about restaurants and what they didn't. And I don't know if it's negativity bias, but we as human beings tend to think of the negatives first. They cited things like instability of tips, rude and impatient customers, which was really sad for me to hear. But then they told me that they found nicer settings in industries like banking and real estate. Hours were more predictable and customers tended to be nicer. I was wondering if you've heard any similar observations, and if you have, how have you gone about maybe getting people to reconsider restaurants and other forms of hospitality?
Sure. Yeah, I know that we have some other panelists that'll be speaking on this topic here in a little bit, but I can just tell you, quickly, the exodus from our industry, was kind of a double the exodus that we saw in this great resignation period anyhow. And a lot of people were choosing other forms of, employment that they felt were safer. But I know even this week, I've had two people, one that went into the insurance industry during the pandemic, who's coming back into travel and tourism because of the type of job that it is, because of the experience that you're able to create for other people. They felt like they couldn't get that value, the feeling of that value in the insurance industry. Granted, we all need insurance, nothing wrong with that. But I do think that experience, for somebody who likes to engage with people, who really feels like and is a service-minded person, you're going to get a lot more from your interaction. When you serve a meal at a restaurant, you're not going to have to wait months or years to get feedback on that. You're going to have feedback pretty quick. Hey, oh yeah, this is a fantastic meal. They love the way it's plated. They love the way that it looks. They love the ambiance. And as somebody who's working there, wait staff or the chef, everybody has a part in all of this. So I think I think that we need to share kind of what the experience is, and some of these people, we can learn from those that there are people who have more experience, I would say, in the dining realm, probably than I do. I've worked with properties with, where I was overseeing a number of dining establishments, but I would, we can learn from what people were worried about, I think, and hopefully carry that forward, so that we're answering those questions ahead of time, making sure that, they do feel that there is some level of security and safety in their role. And this was, again, quite a blow. So, yeah, and I know others may have some comments.
I'd like to thank you briefly for saying the word ambiance. I think that is a key differentiator that you do get in dining establishments, especially when you visit them more than once. So I will keep that word in mind. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Glenn, and thank you, Mark. I want to kind of keep to our time here and keep pressing forward, but you will see Mark's lovely face again on our employer panel. So if you have any questions that arise between now and then, we can definitely get to those then as well. For now, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron Wiltshire, who is the director of the California Community College's North Far North Centers of Excellence, to go over some of our labor market and job posting insight data. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Aaron.
Great, thanks, Caitlin and Mark. Thanks for some of the data points there that I think hopefully I'll be able to underscore as well. And so with that, let's get started on the next slide. So our organization, the Center of Excellence, provides labor market information and other kinds of technical support, such as this panel, engagement services on behalf of the colleges and with our key community partners like Valley Vision, to help figure out where the jobs are, what the job market looks like, where the opportunities are for our students and the outlook is, in a way that will help inform program investments for career technical education. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, just as I did, our organization and program. We'll get into some data around what's going on in hospitality, tourism, and food services. I'll mention a little bit about occupational data in a way that might invite some discussion around what key jobs are hard to fill, or where we're going to need to be recruiting out of our colleges and other places. And we'll look at a little bit of jobs postings data from a tool we use called Burning Glass. Next slide. So I cover the greater Sacramento region primarily. I do work with our colleges in the far north region as well. And there's 8 community colleges in the Sacramento region where we're located. I think that's 4 districts: Los Rios, Yuba Woodland, Lake Tahoe, and Sierra College districts. And I have several other colleagues around the state, and we're kind of organized in the way that the colleges invest those strong workforce program dollars into the state. Next slide. So yeah, again, we're focused on really what employment outcomes are for students in terms of quality jobs. I mean, we're really looking to get people back into the workforce, to advance in the workforce, and to reach self-sufficiency or living wage jobs, good jobs, or jobs with benefits, with advancement opportunities. So that's really what we're looking at. And here's a number of different areas where we do our research in: education, training requirements, credentials, skills, size and performance of the labor market, and so forth. Next slide. So I think we can go one more forward. So yeah, we're going to look at a little bit of data. This slide is basically the 2 industry segments that we looked at here were food services and hospitality. Food services is, I think, 8 industries that we chose, and there's more than 30 in the hospitality side of things. At any rate, what you can see here is the number of jobs in the greater Sacramento region in 2015, and then the number in 2020 for each one of those segments. We did this a similar presentation in October and updated this data for this presentation. The Sacramento region, as we define it, is 7 counties, which is our SACOG planning geography plus Nevada County. And you might say, well, hey, 2020, that's kind of a long time ago. That's, but the reason for that is this data is coming from payroll data. It's a near census of businesses in our region. It takes a little while to compile it. So 2020 is actually the most current data for this set. And, essentially what you can see there is there was a reduction of a little more than 10,000 jobs when we were baselining here. And that, of course, is due to the pandemic. So some of these, what we'll call like a lagging indicator are maybe not so lagging anymore because we're able to see the outcomes from the pandemic. About 3/4 of the jobs, if we're measuring them this way, are in food services, and about 1/4 in the hospitality end of things. And with the next slide, we'll be able to see kind of where this is in context of the economy overall. Next slide, please. Oh, pardon me. Let's go back one. I'm reading off my PowerPoint. So yeah, thank you. Same 2 industry segments, hospitality and food services. This time, just looking at California in comparison to the greater Sacramento region for that 2020 baseline. This just gives us a sense of when you measure in terms of the number of jobs, how large that is in comparison to the economy overall. Sacramento looks roughly the same as California, about 6% of the total economy, again, in terms of the numbers of jobs represented by food services, and then between 2 and 3% represented by hospitality. For those of you familiar with the data in these industries, may look a little different than when you look at economic impact data, for example. That's pretty common in this industry to do those sorts of measures. And that would be, a different number. Next slide. So here, just getting another sense of those employment reductions in that 5-year period where we're able to see an impact from the pandemic. The Sacramento region actually comes out looking a little better when you look at this set. So on the hospitality side, Sacramento region lost fewer jobs than the state. And same thing on food services side. In fact, food services looking about, half better, 7% less job reductions on that 5-year period to the pandemic. We'll see monthly data in a second that helps us understand this a little more, but this is one way to think about this. And we do these sorts of back and forth comparisons where we're looking at the lagging indicators along with the monthly data. The benefit of this stuff is it's a much more complete count. It's just, it takes a little longer to compile it. Next slide, please. So, this one's coming out looking a little funny, but that's okay. I can kind of describe the numbers that we're looking at. This is the data that's the sample, and this is more up to date. It's counted on a monthly basis. And this really does give us a picture of what's going on monthly and closer to present. So you can see we counted this from January 2020 to March 2022. This was the data I think that Mark was referencing in his comments. Basically, the green lines here are representing leisure and hospitality, whereas the gray and blue line is representing the economy overall. Same thing here, where we are looking at the comparison of leisure and hospitality to the economy overall in terms of those monthly totals. So yeah, as Mark was saying, you have this big hit early in the pandemic with the closures. This sector loses about half of its jobs overall, both at the state and the regional level, but has this remarkable recovery, right? And so looking forward to March 2022, the way to read the index is that we end up in Sacramento region with about 8% fewer number of jobs in the sector than in January 2020. That is to say, sort of in plain English, that there's been a remarkable recovery, and yet it's not reached pre-pandemic levels yet. Whereas you can see in the economy overall, in greater Sacramento region, the dark blue, the number of jobs overall in the economy is almost 2% more than it was in January 2020. I think economists are describing this as kind of, we're still in a recovery phase, not in growth mode yet. And of course, with all the stuff going on that we all know about in the news, who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of years. At any rate, I did want to point out here, one of the notes on the question there I think was helpful. It's very likely there's some restructuring going on here in this industry. When we do these measures on across the economy, industries like construction and transportation are significantly above pre-pandemic levels. When we look at labor force and unemployment data, things are really looking pretty good. Though some people have retired or left the workforce or moved away from the area, it's very likely that some people, a significant number, have gone to work in other industries. And when we look at the numbers here moving forward in the slides, we can kind of talk about how are we going to bridge this gap in this industry. It's probably a critical issue. Next slide, please. So measuring average annual earnings, same thing, comparing Sacramento region and California, and looking at hospitality and food services. You can see there the food services average annual earnings are roughly on par between the region and the state, 28,000 versus 31,000. This doesn't count tips, by the way. It doesn't totally count tips. It's like what's reported. This includes employer contributions to, employer contributions to benefits like retirement, but not the employees' contributions. When you look at the hospitality side, big delta between the region and the state. And you have to keep in mind here, the LAs and San Franciscos of the world probably are bumping, hotel jobs are probably bumping that way up. So that's, the main difference there. But big delta, and in cases like that, we're sort of worried about people going to higher earnings regions. Next slide. So Mark mentioned this as well. This is a national measure of wages in leisure and hospitality from the St. Louis Fed. And, this we updated this data for this slide. You can see here an increase of nearly $3 an hour in earnings, in hourly earnings in the sector, at $2.88 to be exact. But, this is a feature of having trouble hiring folks. And so we're seeing these incentives for hiring, bonuses, and, this wage level getting bumped up. So this is part of the world we're living in now. Next slide. So let's look a little bit at occupational data. We can go to the next slide. So what we did here is what's called staffing patterns. So translating the industry information into occupational data. So you might think of, for example, there are facilities managers working in hospitals, but those facilities managers also work in hotels. And so looking at occupations, we're considering the people who work in the organizations rather than the organizations themselves. We look at this data based on skill level. A middle skill job requires more than a high school diploma, but less than a bachelor's degree. We also take experience into consideration when we're looking at this. But I just highlighted, some of what we might think of as a point of departure as kind of occupations that might be target areas. The data that's included here are the number of people employed in the 7-county region, plus the number of annual openings that are projected over the next 5 years. You can see wage data, and then there's how many of these folks in the industry group overall expressed as a percentage. You can see the red numbers there. There's a decline in the numbers between 2015 and 2020. That's not surprising. At any rate, this is kind of an early exercise when you're looking, doing a scan and seeing where there's key demand areas. And here I just highlighted, exercise trainers and fitness instructors. That's a common one when we look at this industry. Hospitality, cooks, maintenance and repair workers, general and operations managers, and then personal services managers. So, again, based on that skill level, maybe representing target outcomes, but these more entry-level jobs we could think of below middle skill might represent key entry points for training, first jobs, or helping people transition, or they could represent sort of upskilling opportunities. Next slide, please. So similar exercise here, but on the food service side, again, total number of jobs in Sacramento region, the number of annual openings that are projected, the share of those workers in that industry. You could see that's a big number of 14% of food service industry are waiters and waitresses. and then the wage number. But again, I just highlighted some of the sort of maybe outcome target areas in terms of community college, middle skill focus, chefs and head cooks, first line supervisors of food prep and serving workers, and then the range of other occupations in this industry that we do the staffing patterns. Next slide, please. So just last couple slides here, showing some detail on jobs postings that appear. We use a tool called Burning Glass that crawls around on the job boards like Indeed and Monster. And basically, what we're looking at here are the top employers that have been posting in the Sacramento region for the last 6 months. So you can see, this is hotels, the ski areas up in North Tahoe area, in South Tahoe, fast casual, the casinos are huge employers in our area, major restaurants and fast food, and so forth. One thing I want to point out here in our economic update that we do quarterly, we look at jobs postings volumes. I'm not showing that here today, but it's been normal over the last year or year and a half to see 1.5 to 2 times the numbers of jobs postings in this sector compared to like January 2020, another indicator that there are hiring challenges, these big job postings volumes in this sector, trying to find workers to re-enter. Next slide, please. So top occupations, similar measure, just a different report. So you can see the kinds of workers that are being asked for in these postings. So food prep workers, wait staff, bartenders, maintenance and repair, customer service, and then, kind of a lot of frontline staff, host and hostesses, cashiers, and so forth, customer service representatives. Next and last slide is going to look at skills. And again, same criteria, just a different report, and the kinds of skills that are being asked for in these jobs postings. So cleaning, customer service. I did notice some management experience and management type skills like budgeting. There's some safety notes here. Customer service, big one in this industry, no surprise there. So with that, I'll kind of wrap up. And in my last slide, I did mention our I think on my contact info, there's something I just wanted to note there.
Next slide.
Yeah, so here, and I can drop this into the chat as well. I did mention our economic update. We're on a quarterly basis. We're presenting data and have been following the hospitality and tourism sector closely with that monthly data, and presenting jobs postings also to show how this highly impacted sector has been recovering. And it's been a remarkable recovery, regaining 40% of its jobs over the course of the last year and a half or more. So with that, I'll kind of wrap up, and thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Aaron. And as Renee put in the chat, I do want to keep us on time and move us into our panel discussion. But if anybody has any question on some of the labor market data, it'd be great if you could drop that in the chat and Aaron can address that there as well. So I will move us right along into our industry panel discussion. So really quickly, I want to introduce you all to our following panelists. We have Shelly Moranville, who is the General Manager of the Residence Inn by Marriott at the Sacramento downtown at Capitol Park location, joined by Brittany Claypool, who is a brand strategist at Oak Park Brewery, Andrew Murray, who is the Director of Culinary at Oakmont Management Group, as well as Jonathan Madrau, who is the owner of Bottle and Barlow and Vice President of the Sacramento chapter of the California Restaurant Association. And we are excited to hear again from our friend Mark Zapposnick, the President and CEO of Rancho Cordova Travel and Tourism. So thank you all so much for joining us here today. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen just so we can see your lovely faces a little bit clearer there. And I'm going to kick it off with our first question. So our first question to our panelists, and I will kind of pitch it to you one at a time, is asking folks to please provide a brief overview of your organization or business, your role, and the types of positions you generally hire for. And I think I'll pass it to Shelley first to kick us off.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me. Great information so far. I'm the general manager of the Residence Inn in downtown Sacramento. I'm a 15-story high-rise. If you've been downtown and you've seen Johnny Cash, that is my building. We hire for housekeepers, accounting, food and beverage, from banquets to restaurant to bartenders, housekeepers, assistant general managers, and sales. So we kind of run full circle maintenance, across the board in terms of the type of services that we need and all sorts of different levels of skill set. So, we're from one end of the spectrum to the other for sure.
Thank you so much, Shelley. And I will kick that next to Brittany. If you could please provide an overview of your organization or business, your role, and some of the positions you hire for.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Again, echoing Shelley, great information so far. Again, I am Brittany Claypool, the brand strategist for Oak Park Brewing Company right here in the heart of Oak Park. We are a brewery and restaurant. And so the typical positions that we hire for are front of the house staff, line cooks. We are, a pretty small brewery. So generally that's what our staffing surrounds.
Thank you so much, Brittany. And I will pass it over to Andrew next. If you could provide an overview of your organization and business, your role, and some of the positions you generally hire for.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thanks for the platform and the opportunity. Yes, I work for Oakmont Management Group, which is a senior housing provider in California. We have 50 communities throughout California and about 7 in the greater Sacramento area, with a couple additional under development. So my area of expertise being the culinary department, we have full service restaurants and bar and lounges in all of our communities. So we're always looking to hire cooks, servers, chefs, bartenders, hosts, as well as the other arm of our organization, care providers, housekeepers, and general plant operations and director roles.
Thank you, Andrew. And I know we heard from you just previously, Mark, but would love to pitch that same question to you. If you could give an overview of your organization, business, your role, and some of the positions you hire for.
Sure. Yeah. So in terms of our organization, we are a DMO. We are a destination management organization. In the past, it would have been known as a destination marketing organization. Marketing is still really critical to what we do. We represent our community here and invite people to come from all other parts of the world to come and experience Rancho Cordova in the capital region. We do this at the benefit of our community. And so we are always cognizant of what we're doing when we're bringing travelers in and how this can have community benefit as well, both on the economic side and on the social interaction side as well. In terms of the types of jobs that we hire internally, we still do quite a bit of marketing. So we have marketing positions that are available at various levels, from director level all the way down to coordinators. We also have a big, we have a sales effort that's out there too, that had changed during COVID, but it's coming back strong now, so that we bring in meetings. We do a lot. We typically work pre-COVID with 70 events per year. So we have a sales team that's working on that. And then we have social media and some other people who are assisting us here in that way. But we also, during COVID, because the demand for workers at our hotels was so big, we established a workforce page for all of the hotel positions that were available in the region. And we promote that as well, because we know that there's a big delta. 20% of the jobs that the hotels had pre-pandemic have not come back. So we're involved in the types of jobs that Shelley was mentioning earlier too.
Thank you, Mark. And I think since you have the microphone, I'm going to pitch this next question back to you, Mark, asking what changes have you made to your service delivery model as a result of the pandemic? whether that's technology or marketing, and how has this impacted your need to hire for different or unique positions or skills? And I know our panelists kind of go across a broad array of different positions. So kind of feel free to answer this question however works best for you.
Okay. Yeah, so happy to comment on that one as well. The experience, in some ways what happened in hospitality evaporated. You weren't allowed to go to restaurants, you weren't allowed to go to bars for a period of time and all of that. Not only that, if you were staying in a hotel, the way that the delivery of housekeeping was taking place, very different from what had happened before. I think that, so that's kind of what's happening industry-wide. For our organization, we did go into full remote operations. And so we communicated via Teams and so forth. It was very important for our staff to be aware of these tools that we're utilizing, not only for the video conferencing, Zoom, other types of things, but how we could communicate through Teams and other ways with documents going back and forth, working collaboratively on these documents. And so I'd say internally, we did spend, a little over a year outside of the office. And so that changed things pretty dramatically for our organization. You can't do that, obviously, with a lot of the service industry positions. You have to be there. And so we were aware of that too, and constantly working to assist those that we serve, the stakeholders, in the hospitality industry, to encourage both visitation to their establishments, but also the workforce development piece too. And others probably have, some better examples of kind of what they did in terms of service delivery adaptation during this time. But technology certainly has taken a strong role in everything that has happened and transpired.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, us at Valley Vision, we're a big proponent of digital skills and kind of that side of it. So excited to hear you speak on that as well. And I will toss that question also back to Andrew. If you could speak on what changes you've made to your service delivery model, whether that's tech or marketing, social media, and how has this impacted your need to hire for different or unique types of skills?
Thank you for the question. It's our industry being in senior living and healthcare. Obviously, we were unable to shutter our doors. We're still caring for senior citizens and needed to maintain our operation. That being said, we also had to adapt to the climate and the environment we were in with COVID, and do so in a way that was safe to do so, especially dealing with a vulnerable population. And then also in tandem with that, dealing with losing a large portion of our workforce due to people not wanting to come into work for various reasons, getting the support that they were able to through additional resources financially, as well as losing a large portion of our workforce at almost a moment's notice when they tested positive for COVID-19. So all in all, it's been a very crazy couple of years for us. We haven't, again, dealing with, delivering food and food to people, not a lot of advancements necessarily in technology, but I think a lot of, really trying to struggle and market the job opportunities that we had to the greater area, whether it be trying to partner with local schools or culinary schools that might have people looking to break into the industry. Also just trying to network through different types of restaurant associations through social media, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, really just trying to connect with people that were experiencing the inability to work at that particular time. And then just relying on, the chef network of, loaning or borrowing workers that were at that time not able to work in the restaurant they were working in until they were able to return.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. It's interesting to hear, these different sides and different perspectives of the industry. Thank you. I'll pitch that same question to you, Brittany. If you could speak on some of the service delivery model or things that have changed as a result of the pandemic and how that's affected some of your needs to hire.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question. So it's been, obviously for, all of us, it's been very interesting over the last couple of years. And so with the difference with us, being that the brewery does have a restaurant, we did have the time frame where, obviously everyone was under that shutdown order. And very quickly, we had to strategize and think and move to fast casual service, where now we're offering the to-go options. We also moved to canning a lot of our beers, and so generally, of course, since we are a small brewery, and a lot of breweries in the area have the same challenge, right? Canning obviously takes that overhead cost super high, right? But I guess the difference, or what was unique with Oak Park Brewery, is that at the onset of the pandemic, the brewery is under new ownership. And so our new team here had a true desire to connect with the community right off the bat. So for the pandemic to hit, with this desire for the new ownership team, we had to get very creative, very, very fast. And so of course we moved to fast casual, offering the to-go option, now canning beverages. But when we had the option to have just outdoor only, we quickly turned a portion of our space, a portion of our venue, into a community space where our community members, customers, artists that we've worked with for our can labels and things like that, we allowed them to utilize our space to host their events. And it's the largest space where people are still able to gather and we could keep the safety. And so just like Andrew was speaking to, that connection, needing to have that, to still have the connection, being able to, or turning our venue into a rental space, event space, really helped us stay connected with the community. Because we often feature artists on our beer can labels and things like that. So even though, we're offering maybe to go, we were still looking for artists, right? We're still brewing beer, right? So we're still needing to stay connected to the community. And so turning our venue into a rentable space truly helped. And then of course with the canning, right? The canning of the beer is something I don't think we'll ever do away with, because the connections that it helped us form with the community is truly a game changer over the last couple of years, and truly sets us apart from other breweries, in the area. And so those two things alone. We also, we have this new thing, I'm sure a lot of you that are in the car maybe might be familiar with this. We do have the $10 growler fill Fridays, right? And so it's something we just we jump started as a thank you to our customers. It's not something that's profitable for, the business, but it's like, hey, right? We're all going through it, we're all trying to show up for each other. Come fill up your growler every Friday for just $10, So just thinking of different offers that we could put into place, right? That of course, especially with the other challenges that are happening in the Oak Park community, right? Prices going up with different things, right? So just thinking of how we can deliver, food specials, beer specials to our community at a low cost, just to say thank you. And the different things we could do at our location to stay connected to the community as well. And so it's truly proven as successful. It's something, like I said, we will never do away with. And it's really established the brewery as home. So thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. And I must admit that my virtual background is hiding the growler on the shelf behind my head right now. I didn't know that you all had that deal. So, and for those who don't know, Valley Vision is just around the corner from Oak Park Brewing. So Brittany, I think I need to go visit you sometime soon. Anyway, thank you so much for sharing your perspective on that. And I will pass that same question over to Shelley. If you could share some of the changes in your service delivery model and how they have impacted your need to hire for different positions or skills.
Yeah, I think I'm shell-shocked from the last 2 years. Trying to reinvent ourselves, the hotel industry has been incredibly strange, difficult, unusual. I've been in this business for 32 years. And, COVID was not like anything our industry ever experienced. Closing doors. I remember the day that they closed bars because my Facebook post said, I just stocked up on tequila, so my household is safe, because I thought for sure that the state would run dry. But we've been very creative in how we've changed our model in doing things. Hotels have gone from daily service daily housekeeping service to more of a weekly housekeeping service or a at your request type of service. We had to be very careful. We didn't know who was in our hotel, right? I mean, you might have known if it was National Guard, you might have known if it was doctors and nurses, but when you knocked on that door, people were not very forthcoming about whether or not they had COVID. Or if they were quarantining for COVID. And so that exposure level, the amount of training that we had to provide on a constant and daily basis, and quite honestly, I think that when I look at what has happened to our industry and why do we have the challenges that we have in hiring people, I think it's because people are tired. Our guests, whether they are patrons coming into a restaurant, patrons coming into a hotel, are not happy people right now. And so you're asking someone, a college level student, to stand at the front desk and not really know who they're going to interact with. Are they going to interact with someone who's extremely grateful and happy to be there? Are they going to interact with someone who maybe is coming from Texas or Florida and is appalled at the laws that we still have and we are still faced with? So it's a challenge. And so I think that I've seen many of my colleagues realign themselves and leave our industry because it has just become incredibly difficult. So, we've become extremely flexible. It was unheard of to ask a person what their availability was, and they would say, I'm only available evenings 3 nights a week. And, 2 years ago, we'd be like, yeah, thanks. We really need flexibility. We need you here on weekends. We need you here on holidays. And now you find yourself willing to hire one person to work one day. You're only available Sundays. Fantastic. We'll see you every Sunday. And you're much more flexible to the needs of the associates. And I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. I think that as employers, it's forced us to shift and maybe be a little bit more understanding to what's going on in someone's life. I mean, I have seen associates who the quarantine actually made their introverted nature come out to the point where they now are not comfortable interacting with people. I had an associate who came to me and said, my fellow coworkers come up and talk to me and I just in my head am screaming, go away. Well, this is someone who used to thrive in our hotel. And so in talking to him and having a conversation with him, we moved him into a position where he no longer needed to interact with people, where he's just back in the laundry room, he's completely by himself. And I think that's what's changed most about us, right? Is that ability to be flexible, that ability to still take care of the guests. We have sales folks now who are guest liaisons. So if you are a long-term guest in my hotel, my salesperson is basically assigned to welcome you, get to know you, do some of what used to be done by front desk. So we've really changed the way we do everything, from cleaning to servicing to staffing to, I don't know that there's anything that hasn't changed.
Thank you, Shelley. Yeah, really interesting to hear about that kind of employee-centered design and, the different things that you all are doing. That kind of takes me into our next question, asking folks, are there pathways within your organization or business that train employees for leadership roles, or do you all generally hire leadership or upper management roles from outside of your company? And I'm going to switch up our order a little bit because I like to keep things fun and fresh. And I'm going to pass it over to Andrew first to answer that question.
Sorry about that. I was hoping it would pop up so I could read along really quickly, but could you repeat it one more time? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll get it in the chat shortly here, but asking folks, are there pathways within your organization or business that train employees for leadership roles, or do you generally hire leadership or upper management roles from outside of your company? So sort of looking at whether you hire within or from the outside.
Mm-hmm. I think that actually due to the pandemic, we saw a lot of burnout at the upper upper roles in our organization. I think with the amount of call-offs we were getting from, line cooks, dishwashers, servers, and our chefs or dining room managers being salary, picking up those shifts, we saw unprecedented amount of turnover in our upper leadership positions, which normally in the past we had hired from the outside. During the pandemic, we really wanted to reward and develop the team members that were loyal and stayed by us and were putting in the work. And we thought, what better time than this to invest in the future of our organization in that way. So I think more so than in the past, especially with the amount of vacancies we did have in some of those positions, we did need to really start developing paths to success for like the sous chefs or lead line cooks that were ready to take that next step. So I would say we, especially during the pandemic, have started looking at that to the point where we've started developing an actual executive chef training program to identify those individuals that might need 3 months, 6 months, a year to refine some soft skills, management skills, training on financials, ordering, et cetera, and how to actually lay out a path for them so that they not only can achieve that goal and that goal within hopefully our organization, but also know exactly the steps to do there. Because I think there's nothing that anybody dreads more than, having that carrot dangled in front of them indefinitely. So, that's been pretty successful. So we're really looking forward to taking some of the experience we've had in the past couple of years, putting that together and refining that program and rolling it out.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I appreciate that. And I'm going to jump over to Brittany next with the same question on, hiring leadership or upper management, whether that comes from inside of your brewery or if you typically hire candidates from outside.
Yeah, great question. So with the brewery, we are, we're pretty small, as is, a lot of breweries that are in the area. And so when it comes to leadership or management, we look internally. And so we, because it's so small and we have, employees, we're about 20 employees. And so we're, our relationships that we're forming with one another, even with turnover still being high, because our team is so small, right? Especially our leadership team is just 4 people, right? So with it being so small, the relationships that we're building are, they're very tight knit, they're very close, right? And so we very often speak to our staff, especially because we want everyone to radiate the community or the desire to stay connected to the community. We have to highlight that within at home, right? We have to do that at our place of business. So we're often talking to our staff about, hey, as we grow, right? This is the need as the business grows, right? And just because you come in as front house staff, if you're showing interest in building up, if you're showing interest in social media, right? One of our front house staff has actually taken over our social media page, right? So it's like, okay, if you are showing interest in, wanting to learn the brewing process, right? We have 2 in-house brewers, right? That are also co-owners, right? So it's like, hey, if you want to learn how to brew this beer, right? Because we've got to make more beer now that we're canning and all this stuff, right? We're getting more contracts. We pass that along to our staff that are in-house, right? And a lot of them show interest in doing so. And so we always start at home, and it's worked really, really well over the last couple of years. Like I said, we've had front of house staff move into social media. They've advanced in their roles, going to, now leads, preparing for, possibly moving into the GM's role, and so we've seen a lot of empowerment in doing so with our staff. And I'm a true believer that as you continue to empower your staff, they'll help tell the story that your business wants to tell, right? So because our brewery is so focused on staying connected to the community and really driving forward creativity from the community. Like I said, we really want to show that at home as well. And because we've empowered our staff, they're able to tell our story for us as well, right? And so it's just been a beautiful thing. And we've been seeing that like I said, that growth just over the last couple of years with starting at home first.
Thank you, Brittany. And I will chuck that same question to Jonathan Madraw next. If you could talk about whether your organization, and I know you're affiliated with several, whether you see candidates often being, hired or trained up internally or externally, or what your experience has been there.
Sure. We certainly prefer to promote from within because we're very culty with our culture. But depending on the times, we have also in the past, brought in outside talent. One of the things that I do as an owner is I try to make sure I understand every employee's long-term goals, and that may seem strange for some entry-level positions, and sometimes it's asking the question is just the trigger for them to really start thinking about it versus getting their next paycheck a couple Fridays from now or something. But that becomes part of my job description. So when I figure out that goal, I might coach somebody into leadership, or I might coach them out of the industry, depending on what's a win-win. The industry might not be the best fit for them. A lot of the very insightful panelists you have referred to the challenges that we've dealt with customers, especially from outside areas whose restrictions were less than ours and stuff. And I think that as an industry and as a people, as a culture, broadly, we kind of went through a trauma together, and we experienced in very different ways. And not everybody can exercise hospitality within a trauma. I think Shelley had made the point of one of her most patient employees all of a sudden becoming very thin-skinned, and I think that was extremely common. But sometimes hiring from outside can be great for us, but typically hiring upper-level management or something from outside also means that they're going to try to make their stamp really quickly, which can be quite a disruption. So I need to know if that's the right move right now. Am I looking for a disrupt, or am I looking to maintain? Do we need to shake things up, or do we need to continue along the path? So it certainly situation to situation, but most of the time we really appreciate doing it from inside.
Thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate that. And I will throw that same question over to Mark. And I know, Mark, similar to Jonathan, there are several organizations you work with. So if you could, in your experience, if you've seen candidates typically kind of on a pathway to leadership or management internally, or more of a preference to hire externally?
Yeah, we definitely, within our organization, we have a preference to hire internally if we can. Then these associates and employees, our team members, are bringing institutional knowledge about what we do, especially as a DMO. It's a little bit different than some other sectors of the tourism and hospitality industry. So it's great when we have team members that we can bring up, and we have examples of people who started as coordinators who are now directors. And so, yeah, so as much as possible, that's great. And we've been very fortunate. I'm knocking on wood right now that, we've kept a lot of people involved in the organization and found those roots and those pathways for them as they grow. Like Jonathan was mentioning, though, for some people, maybe there is a better fit that they can find elsewhere, and that's great too. One other thing that we do here is that we offer internships. Right now we have 3 federal work-study internships that are running with Sacramento State. And we do work with other colleges and universities, and we would always be open, to any local colleges that are interested in putting somebody into an internship program, and they can really get the kind of the boots on the ground of what happens in these organizations. And that's important for us because, they may or may not work for us long term, but if we can help them to stay within the industry, that's a win for sure. We want to make sure that they have those opportunities. So, yeah. So hope that answers it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mark. And I will pass that question also to Shelley for your experience, kind of looking at that path of leadership internally versus externally.
Yeah, we most definitely focus on the internal promotion. There was a time when I entered this industry when Marriott would just grab people right out of college. If you had a bachelor's degree, you went right into a management ID program. And I think that that's changed quite a bit. I started at the front desk. I did night audit. I think, I have and to Jonathan's point, I think you have to sit down with every associate and you have to understand what their long-term goals are. And I think that that's really what helps people to reach their potential the most, right? I love to take college students and introduce them to a different side of, right now I have a college student right out of Sac State who is in my accounting office. He has an accounting degree, and we're introducing him to a side of accounting that nobody talks about, right? Hotel accounting. Who knew you could flourish and he could move on to be a controller? And one of the great things about being a director of finance or a controller, or even being in our industries in hospitality, is you can work anywhere in the world, right? I got really upset with an owner once and I was like, I'm going to quit. And my boss said, where are you going to go work? And I was like, name one city I can't work in. Just give me one. And I think that that's a big selling point for us. I think that you're going to find by talking to your associates really what they're true. I don't expect anybody to work for me forever. So I have a lot of senators and assembly members that live in my hotel. And I just put one of my front desk agents who is a college student in contact with an assembly member. She got to shadow him for the day. Her life goal is to become a congresswoman. So I think that, you know, it's not just about promoting from within to leadership roles, but again, how do we really help people reach their full potential, doing what they love more than anything? So we truly focus on promoting within more than we do anything else.
Thank you, Shelley. Yeah, interesting to hear these different perspectives or somewhat similar among these different industries. And Shelley, I'm going to hand the microphone right back to you. And I'm going to skip over our questions a little bit because I want to make sure, you know, we're in the interest of time. But I'm curious for our next question, what specific soft or also called interpersonal or essential skills are needed to be successful at your business? And I'll start that with you, Shelley.
It's actually a funny topic, just because 2 years ago I would have said the ability to do a proper handshake. And for the last 2 years, we're like, don't touch me. So, you know, I think just eye contact and carry on a conversation, that really has become one of the most difficult soft skills. You know, I'm a bit of a storyteller. I'm sure you guys can tell I've always got an example. But my daughter, who loved school. I mean, I was in trouble if I didn't have my 8th grader to school on time because she was shooting for that perfect attendance. She all of a sudden on March 17th became a homeschooled child, March 17th of 2020. And when they introduced children back into school 2 days a week, she's in my kitchen crying. And I'm like, what is happening? And she's like, I don't want to go to school. And so we've had this shift in dynamics, and we had to push her out there because I'm not a homeschooled mom. My husband's definitely not a homeschooling father. And we had to force her back into real life and back into a normal environment, which no longer was normal for her. So I'm going to say that the soft skill, the essential skills right now are taking this generation that's entering the workforce and really being sure that they can connect and have conversations and make eye contact and smile and just relax a little bit, right? I mean, we are so tense as a society right now that I think that that's going to be what's going to be challenging for us more so than anything else as we move into the future right now.
Thank you so much, Shelley. And I will push that same question to Jonathan. If you could speak on what specific soft or interpersonal or essential skills are needed to be successful at your business.
Thank you. Yeah, and thanks for that answer, Shelley, too. I agree with so much of it, and I'm going to definitely repeat some of the things that you said in my own fashion. But at this point, because I like to hire entry level right now, the soft skills are the most important. The hard skills are not important to me. I can teach them. But EQ is huge, especially, you know, having sensitivity and empathy. The ability to anticipate somebody's needs is all part of hospitality. Leadership skills, particularly, even if it's a new person, if they just have the ability to be flexible, you know, I find that to be a highly proficient leadership quality. Having a tendency towards care. Listening, being the greater part of communication is really important to us as well. We can certainly teach the hard skills and techniques, but the instinct for care and collaboration, that's built up partly through inherent ability, but also environment and your own personal development and growth. And that's not something that we can teach when we're hiring adults. You know, if somebody's been on a sports team or has acted or done anything in sort of a team environment, you know, a lot of times it indicates that they're going to have some portion of those skills. So every employee, even at the entry level that we hire gets, and this is going to sound nuts, but gets about 3 hours of interview time before they're hired. And if they don't hit that time, they probably won't get hired. The first interview is with me, and there's no traps in it or anything. It's not like specific to the industry. It's strictly get to know you. And if we can hold a conversation, they can string it out to an hour, and we can enjoy each other's company, and I'm not turned off or don't see any red flags, then they get a stage. And the stage is a 2-hour working interview. And one of the things that we say in the working interview is that you must, it's a requirement, you have to interview us as much as we're interviewing you, because if you're going to commit to us and we're going to commit to you, it needs to be a 50-50, it has to be a win-win, and we have to meet in the middle. But you know, while I'm interviewing folks and getting to know them, I only have one question that I absolutely ask every single person, and it's, how are you weird? And there's no, you know, right or wrong answer to it. But it makes some people feel uncomfortable. So it's, how do they deal with discomfort? And then some people just dive right into their idiosyncrasy, and it might give you the impression that they might be a lot more comfortable with other people's idiosyncrasies coming in the door, and may not like draw some sort of conclusion based on appearance or gender or race or something, or any other sort of stereotype. If somebody hits the door, might be able to provide better hospitality to everybody. And when they stage, you know, we're looking at, are they adaptable? Like, we're just throwing them into the job. So are they adaptable? Do they ask questions, or do they require direction and you to come to them to give it? Do they have initiative? So did they overstate their talents, or are they more humble? You know, when you're joining our team, you need to know you want to be a part. And because we have very, very low turnover, and that isn't 100% by design. I think a termination can absolutely be a win-win, and there have been several, but it's all about the soft skills, I guess, is what just looping around to the basis of the question.
Thank you, John. I love that "how are you weird" question. I'm like saving that as a nugget in my head for when I interview folks in the future. I'll pass that same question over to Mark. You know, what specific interpersonal or soft skills are needed to be successful?
Yeah, you know, so Jonathan had some great examples there, and you know, especially when you have people who are working in a frontline environment and providing. I mean, the experience is that interaction. You know, it's a big part of it, aside from the ambiance and so forth. You know, when you go in for a beer, it's really that interaction. You know, that really makes it the experience. I think a lot of those soft skills. You know, the eye contact that Shelley had been mentioning. All of that, you know, when I think about what could be taught a little bit, I mean, I think there's so many soft skills that are important. For our organization in particular, we're based here in Rancho Cordova. This is the 28th most diverse city in the nation. Diversity is a huge factor. And so, you know, some cultural awareness is really helpful, you know, and how you might be able to interact with different types of cultures, you know, that will be coming in and that we work with. We work with, you know, a whole host of different types of people and different cultural events and so forth. So that's really helpful. I think that, you know, if somebody's had, I mean, we talked about this internally at one of our staff meetings, actually, you know, if they've taken some theater classes, can be a really beneficial thing, because you have to be, you know, kind of paying attention and connecting. So I think those types of things are important, the cultural, and I think the art side too. You know, you want, you know, I think for so many things there needs to be innovation and creativity, and so, you know, art is a great way to kind of find that within you and have that experience of just, you know, trying different things out, starting with that blank canvas, and then boom, we can, you know, get something done here. So I think, you know, it's interesting. It's not only marketing. There are certainly, you know, there are the technical skills that are really important too. But I think the soft skills, nothing can replace that. And like Jonathan mentioned too, you can teach the hard skills. The soft skills are the things you're going to be looking for when you hire somebody. And yeah, so I think that.
As a former theater kid, I'm delighted to hear all of this recommendations for theater. Thank you very much. I'm going to have to tell my high school teacher that. I'll pass that same question over to you, Andrew, on soft skills, interpersonal skills. What's important?
So we built, I think, some like values in our organization that I think are that we really look for in all of our team members. Authenticity being a key one. I think there's always going to be corporate and political games in the corporate battlefield that you're on. But, ultimately, unless you know yourself and can be yourself, you're not going to be really successful in really any form of business, in my mind. Teamwork is another big one that, especially over the past couple of years, having to help each other out, step outside of your roles or the role or your job description and support the other people that are showing up to work every day, regardless of whether or not it's the job that you were hired to do. I think, again, with so many things that were said today, compassion is such a strong one. Compassion for our guests, compassion for each other. And honestly, like for me, I had never really had much compassion for myself until the pandemic came along and I realized I needed to take care of myself a little bit more. Commitment, I think, just looking for everybody to have that commitment of when they say they're going to do something, do it, whether it be showing up to work or executing a task. And then I think, again, another thing that just resonates so much over the past couple of years is just resilience. And I think everybody, regardless of what you do, what line of work you're in, or even if you're working, the past 2 years have really forced everybody to be resilient and adaptable and overcome, whether it be March of 2020 when you're trying to figure out a way to get toilet paper at the store, or trying to keep your doors open, trying to keep the lights on, in everybody's business. So I think those are 5 things we look for in our organization. And I think especially, like, I just hear all of that resonating through everybody that's been speaking today. So thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. And I will pass that same question over to Brittany. What interpersonal skills or specific skills are crucial in your business today?
Yeah, absolutely. Cultural awareness, as Mark mentioned a little bit earlier, is huge for us. Even though we're in an industry that's 95% white male dominated. As a brewery in the heart of Oak Park, those that walk through our doors look very different, right? And so just being culturally aware, right? Because there are so many different faces that are going to approach that bar, right? And for us to make that that connection, right? Just having that awareness is huge for us. Another thing that's very huge for us as well, especially because we're so community focused, is just the desire, right? The desire to work, right? What we've really seen, especially because we are a brewery that focuses a lot on art and creativity, not only from the community, but from our staff. We've realized that over the pandemic, the desire or push for especially the younger generation to step out of the workforce and into entrepreneurship was highlighted, right? A lot of the younger generation saw that these businesses can function truly without you, and so as we interview, we are looking to see, hey, what's the desire? Right? What's the desire? Are you looking to do this as you build your, as you build your side business? Are you looking to do this, right? So is this just a stepping stone, launching pad to get you somewhere else, right? So really gauging that desire. So Jonathan was talking about how the interview process can get pretty long because a huge part of it is just getting to know your candidate, right? On a personal level, right? Because of course you got that time in the interview, right, where it's real political, right, and so kind of breaking that barrier. So I love the, how are you weird question, right, because it gets the mind turning, right, and it kind of takes you out of the political, these are the basic questions, right, and really gets you get to know the person that you're interviewing, and so that's a big that's a big focus for us, right? So we like to go in, our interviews are very casual. They're not scripted because we just want to know who you are, right? And then kind of after we gauge that in that first initial interview, there's that second callback, that second interview, because sometimes, right, a completely different person shows up on the second interview, right? So just really focusing on you know, the desire, right? Just the desire to be, and Shelley kind of spoke to this, you know, earlier, right? You've got one employee that was like, you know, this is your, you know, the person that's forward facing, right? Customer facing, and then kind of going through the pandemic, right? Being quarantined and having to work through that, right? That now there might be a different role. So gauging the desire, that cultural awareness, because like I said, although the industry is dominated, those that walk through our doors look a little bit different. And so those two are our main focus, because everything else we can teach, right? We can teach you how to use the register, the brewing, right? Brewing the beer might take a little longer, right? But all the other things, right? We can teach, you know, you can teach how to bust a table. That's nothing, right? But in order for, especially because we're under new ownership at the start of the pandemic, it's so imperative that our employees, right, and our staff are telling the story that we want our brewery to tell, right? And it's community focused, right? So, right, that's really what we're gauging. We can teach you everything else, okay? Like I said, beers take a little longer, but everything else we can teach. We just want to see that focus on community, that cultural awareness, and just the desire to be back in the workforce. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brittany. I appreciate that, you know, that kind of insight there. And now I know we're getting close on time, but I really want our panelists to answer this last question. So I want all of our panelists to unmute. It's a lightning round. Let's do like 20 seconds. What one piece of advice would you give to individuals interested in employment in this industry? Ready, set, okay, go.
Hospitality is a lifestyle, not a job. If you're really good, it's innate and it can keep you from burning out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, you know, if you've got to be stuck in the rat race of getting up and going to work every single day, hospitality really is the place to do it, because no 2 days are alike. We have seen some crazy stuff in our world, so you're never going to have a boring day.
Only do it if you love it, and if you love it, you'll thrive.
I would say those that are interested in stepping into the brewing industry, OPB, I don't know any other place, right? Any other place, and all the breweries that I've been to, any other place that really takes the creativity, right? You as a person, right? It really pushes that forward, not only in the operations of our business, but really can help kind of take your personal, you know, your personal desires to the next level. Come on down, hang out at OPB. We've got Monday Live every Monday, so come hang out with us. Graphical Fridays, Caitlin will see you soon. So yeah, definitely come hang out with us.
That's great. Yeah, I would say, you know, one thing that, you know, we always look for is, you know, that experience maker, you know, kind of like I said from the beginning, you know, if you have that, you know, if that's part of your makeup, that's great. Because if you want to help create that great experience for somebody, it not only makes their day fantastic, but also gives you a lot. I think when you're able to create and do something that helps people like that, and if you have that personality where it's like, no, I do want to be in this service industry, help somebody have that great experience, that's fantastic. And you won't find any other place that's better than hospitality and tourism to do that.
Thank you so much. I love those quick lightning round quote. I mean, Andrew, I'm gonna have to get your quote like tattooed on my body. That's such a good like life perspective. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much. I know, folks, we have 1 minute to time. If I can keep you for one more minute, we have a couple things before we wrap up here, but just a huge, huge thank you to our employers for taking the time out of your busy workday to join us and to advise this industry. I can't say how much I appreciate it. I used to work in the industry myself, and I love seeing the different direction that things are going in. So without further ado, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you all to a face that might look very familiar to you. Josh Swiger. Josh formerly assisted our team as a regional director for the North Far North in some of our past advisories, and is now recently appointed to Assistant Director of Employer Partnerships. So I'll pass it over to Josh briefly just to introduce himself to you all.
Hey folks, can you hear me?
Yes.
good. I'm a little hoarse. I've actually, my fiance and I have been down with COVID all week of all times after 2 years of this fun stuff that came to us. So, but it's great to see and hear from you all today. I know a few of the names on the call, certainly some new faces and names. Great info today. I've been around for the last couple of years in a role basically helping to serve as kind of connective tissue between the community colleges and this broad and vast industry with all of its complexities and needs even before the onset of the pandemic, and certainly the roller coaster since then. So there's been a lot of changes in our work over the last few months. I won't bore you with the tedious details here, but as Caitlin said, I'm glad to say that I'll be continuing forward. So looking forward to hopefully circling up with some of you on this call and being around in the future and helping to make some badly needed momentum in the workforce development in this sector. So great to see you all today. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh, and hope you feel better soon. DoorDash some good food and drink some tea. I also just wanted to quickly flag to folks before we pop off a little bit about the Handshake platform, which is beneficial for both employers and students. So the Los Rios Community College recently partnered with Handshake, which is a modern career development platform that became a kind of a leading platform early in community college in the United States. So students can use Handshake to discover internships, look for jobs, and register for different employer events. And the Los Rios Community College Career Services and Work Experience Program welcomes some of the different new partnerships with employers who are seeking to connect with talented students and alumni over this platform. So for some of our employers here today, something to consider, whether you already have an existing account or you're interested in creating one, you can go on there and just select Los Rios and get connected with some great talent. So just wanted to quickly show that off to you all, and wanted to say, kind of closing out here, a huge thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate all of you taking the time out of your day to come onto this event, to provide your perspective and to help us align this pipeline. Our team has been vigorously taking notes in the background. So if you see me looking away from my screen, it's because my notebook is nearly full. And we will be also publishing a meeting proceedings report about the findings of this event, key findings to help inform our curriculum. So thank you all so much for joining. Thanks again to our sponsors and the Los Rios Community College District for making this happen. And also want to say thanks again to Michael Frim and our planning team here. You can see our contact information. All of the materials from this advisory will be sent out, including this recording, the PowerPoint, and we'll follow up with our meeting proceedings report in about a month or so. So I don't want to keep you any later. I know I'm 3 minutes over, so thank you all so much for joining.